Um, so Lynn is working at a local newspaper and is living in the Third Ward area. And she has to go to work, and it's a rainy day. And it's too far and too wet to walk. So she left home, and she was walking and was offered a ride. And she was trusting, and she took the ride. And, the guy who picked her up was not a good guy.
Every crime tells a story, but not all stories are given a proper ending. Some are buried beneath doubt, injustice, and missing evidence. So, how did a promising student and leader go from making history to becoming a cold case? When the evidence disappears, is it just failure? Or is it time to question those we're taught to trust? Welcome to Shades of Crime. Today we'll shine light on the unsolved case of Lynn Houston. About 45 miles southeast of downtown Houston lies Galveston, Texas. Known for its beaches, historic landmarks, and cultural roots, Galveston is one of Texas' most popular tourist destinations. On June 19, 1865, 2.5 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, General Granger, along with federal soldiers, arrived in Galveston to announce that all slaves were free. That day became known as Freedom Day. It was later coined Juneteenth. Born on October 11, 1948, in Galveston, Texas, to Ida Mae Boudreaux Houston and Wilbur Houston Sr., Lynn Cecilia Houston was the eldest of 5 siblings. She grew up in San Antonio, Texas, and later moved to Houston, where she graduated from Phyllis Wheatley High School in 1966. By the summer of 1966, Lynn went on to attend the University of Houston, where she pursued a double major in education and journalism. At that time, the university was still a predominantly white institution that had only been desegregated 4 years earlier in 1962. The racial climate on campus was tense and often isolating for black students, who made up only a fraction of the university's population. Lynn was amongst the first black students to attend U of H, navigating an environment where she and her peers frequently faced discrimination, marginalization, and a lack of institutional support. The presence of black students was tolerated, but their full participation in campus life was far from embraced. In the midst of the rising black liberation movement, Lynn remained steadfast in her dedication to uplifting and serving her community. That same summer, she created a community-enriched program for young girls living in the Houston, historically black, Third Ward neighborhood. Lynn would volunteer her time to teach young black girls how to sew and swim, offering not only practical skills, but also a sense of empowerment. Lynn's focus was to instill confidence, dignity, and self-worth. Lynn began speaking out against racial inequality, not only at U of H but throughout the city. In 1967, Lynn would join Eugene Locke and Dwight Allen to create and organize the Committee of Better Race Relations, COBRR, an organization dedicated to fighting for inclusion and equality on campus. COBRR aimed to promote racial harmony among students at U of H. By the following year, COBRR evolved into Afro Americans for Black Liberation, AABL, pronounced ABLE, a more assertive student-led group that successfully pushed for the establishment of Black history courses. ABLE also sought to build coalitions across racial lines and connect with surrounding communities, including Third Ward and nearby campus Texas Southern University, all while centering Black empowerment. Living in her belief, Lynn was determined to carve out space for the voices that had been long silenced. Lynn remained at the forefront of these efforts, continuing her activism through involvement in several other organizations that were aimed at seeking justice and equality. During this time, those who knew her remembered her as witty, warm, and a catalytic force for change. She was deeply respected by peers for her sincerity, her ability to speak truth to power, and her unshakable belief. She aspired to work together with people and help improve their lives, one of her former roommates reflected. On November 22, 1968, Lynn became the first Black homecoming queen at a predominantly white Southern university, defeating 5 white candidates. In a post-election interview, she expressed her excitement and pride, stating, "What made me the happiest was the Blacks on the campus got together so well to push this through. They have not been that much together on any issue before." She also added, "Many people think I should feel different because I'm Black, and this victory is symbolic. But I feel just as anyone would feel, Black or white, happy."
And then the shock that she was actually named, and it was like, it was fantastic. It belittles Lynn to think of her as a typical homecoming queen and to think of her election as a typical election. Her election was not the traditional, let's run somebody for homecoming queen. It was a political statement, an organizing effort that put the African American students in conjunction with the leading forces from the anti-war movement, in conjunction with international students who had been left out, in conjunction with Hispanic students who did not have a voice, in conjunction with women who did not have a voice, and in conjunction with the anti-fraternity sorority sentiment that was always at the University of Houston. So all of us that were kind of outside of that norm kind of came together, and I helped to organize that effort to say, hey, look, why don't we do something different? And Lynn was chosen as really a political representative. We're going to kind of make a statement here. And we thought of it at the time as how crazy it would be to think that a Black girl could be homecoming queen at the University of Houston. But we did our homework, and there were enough people who wanted something different. And it showed the political fervor at the University of Houston.
Lynn's impact extended far beyond the crown. She remained a passionate advocate for Black pride and civil rights, both on and off campus. After earning her degree from University of Houston in 1970, she began working in the Voice of Hope, the media arm for Hope Development, which served Houston's Fifth Ward area. She also contributed to Black Enterprise magazine, where she worked as a secretary and public relations representative. On the rainy and windswept morning of September 10, 1971, Lynn left her home walking, heading to work. Some reports indicate that she was last seen at a bus stop in the Houston's Third Ward area, not far from where she lived. At some point along her route, she accepted a ride, an act not uncommon at the time amongst Black community members, who often extended and accepted such gestures out of shared sense of solidarity and trust. Tragically, that trust was broken. Shortly after Lynn was picked up, a 1971 Chevrolet sedan driven by a Black 26-year-old male, later identified as Leo Jackson Jr., ran a stop sign and collided with an unmarked police car operated by an HPD detective. During the investigation at the scene, officers discovered Lynn's body in the back seat. she had been stabbed multiple times and was pronounced unalived shortly after. Lynn was just 1 month and 1 day away from her 24th birthday. Leo Jackson Jr. had a troubling criminal history, including 14 prior arrests for rape, assault, and armed robbery. When questioned by police, Jackson claimed he saw Lynn standing at the corner of Alameda Road and Southmore Boulevard and offered her a ride into town. According to his statement, once Lynn entered the car, she suddenly began crying, screaming, and allegedly stabbing both herself and him. He stated he was attempting to drive her to Ben Taub Hospital. However, investigators noted that he was headed in the opposite direction of the hospital at the time of the crash. Jackson was subsequently arrested and charged with the unaliving of Lynn Houston.
He raped and killed her, attempted to rape her. She fought him, and he just stabbed her multiple times. And when the word came back, we were just in total disbelief. It's tragic, very sad.
During the trial, the medical examiner testified that Lynn had been stabbed multiple times in the back, wounds that could have not been self-inflicted. She also had several defensive injuries, consistent with someone trying to fight off an attack. According to court documents, investigators reached out to Jackson's parents to gather general background information about their son. Jackson's mother initially answered the call, but soon passed the phone to his father. Although he provided little information, he did, however, make the unsolicited statement that his son did not carry a knife or keep a large knife in his vehicle. Detectives found this statement peculiar, as no mention of a large knife had been made during the conversation. They also noted hearing Jackson's mother in the background, seemingly trying to quiet or interrupt her husband. Jackson's father also revealed that his son had called him after the crash. When investigators asked what was said during that call, the father refused to continue the conversation and abruptly ended the call. An HPD detective later testified that several pieces of clothing and other personal items from the evidence room had been destroyed because they were heavily soaked in blood and had begun to emit a strong odor. Also, police records show that Jackson's vehicle was not searched until Monday, September 13, 1971, 3 days after the unaliving of Lynn Houston. Multiple witnesses claimed they saw Jackson holding a knife at the crash scene. However, they were not able to positively identify him in a police lineup. The detective involved in the collision stated that his glasses had been knocked off during the impact, claiming this prevented him from clearly seeing Jackson's face. Police claimed they conducted a thorough search of the area, but were ultimately unable to recover a weapon. With no weapon, no recovered personal belongings of the victim, and no definitive identification of the suspect, the prosecution's case rested entirely on circumstantial evidence. Supporters of both Lynn Houston and Leo Jackson Jr. filled the courtroom, and local activists closely monitored the trial. The defense emphasized the absence of physical evidence and questioned the credibility of eyewitness accounts, many of which were inconsistent or uncertain. Meanwhile, the prosecution struggled to firmly connect Jackson to the crime without direct forensic evidence, a recovered weapon, or a clear motive. In March 1972, 6 months after the unaliving of Lynn Houston, Leo Jackson Jr. was acquitted by a jury. It's been over 53 years, and still no one has been held accountable for the unaliving of Lynn Houston. This case deserves better. Crucial evidence was destroyed. Leads were left unpursued. Key testimonies remained inconsistent and unchallenged. In the absence of accountability, the truth about what happened to Lynn Houston remains clouded in doubt. A life stolen, and the justice system that failed her. Police never named another suspect or person of interest. According to case files, Leo Jackson Jr. died of cancer in 1985. In 2013, the Houston Police Department officially closed the case. So it makes me wonder, was the lack of urgency, the mishandling of evidence, and the dismissal of key leads all happened because of who Lynn was? A bold, outspoken black woman challenging systemic racism in the South. And how did 12 jurors reach a unanimous acquittal? With so many unresolved questions and investigative failures, it feels there was enough uncertainty to at least result in a hung jury. Lynn Houston was a journalist, an activist, an advocate. She wore many titles and earned all of them by the age of 23. She never allowed being the first black homecoming queen of a Southern university to overshadow her true purpose, fighting for justice and equality. 3 years after the unaliving of Lynn Houston, the University of Houston named one of its largest parks in her honor. The SHAPE Community Center, which stands for Self-Help for African People Through Education, which she co-founded in 1969, remains active today in Houston's 3rd Ward area. Her legacy lives on through the organizations she inspired, the programs she helped build, and the academic studies that continue to examine her work and life. Lynn dedicated her life fighting for justice and equality, but in the end, that same system failed to fight for her, and her justice was never received. Lynn once stated she wanted to be remembered for the cause of justice and equality for all people in this society, and that's what she's truly remembered for. No story is forgotten, no voice should go unheard. Sending my deepest condolences and prayers to Lynn's family and friends. Earthly justice may have failed, but God sees all. I pray that you continue to rest in peace, Miss Lynn Houston. Until the next time, thank you for watching Shades of Crime. Please comment, like, and subscribe. And remember to pray. God's listening.